So this month, we're looking at our commitment to the ongoing work of formational healing. And just as a reminder, we're looking at our commitments within our rule of life over the course of this year through the lens of Ignatius's teaching on consolation and desolation. Most simply, consolation is that interior sense and feeling where we recognize that there's an increase in faith and hope and love at work in the deepest place in our soul. And desolation is basically the opposite. It's when we're feeling the energy of our faith depleting a bit, or we find that somewhere on the inside of our soul, our sense of hope is running a bit dry, or we notice that love feels like a chore, like our love just doesn't have the energy that we know that it once had. So, friends, the ebb and flow of consolation and desolation is a normal part of the spiritual journey. And we want to spend this whole year trying to continue to normalize the ebb and flow of these interior movements. And one of the places where this ebb and flow really shows up is in our commitment and our journey to formational healing. So formational healing is the unique healing work that God is doing in each of our lives. Throughout our life, simply by virtue of us being a human being and susceptible to pain and loss and trauma and unmet needs, and the way that we respond to all of this by grabbing a hold of things too tightly or getting our needs met in ways that are outside of God's good design for us, this whole journey creates in us things that need the ongoing healing touch of God. And these may or may not be things that you are in touch with. Like, you may have no idea of places in your life that are in need of the deep healing touch of God. But the lack of healing, it has a way of sort of leaking out sideways, impacting our relationships, preventing us from intimacy with others, or causing us to show up in the world in ways that cause harm to others, even in ways that we're unaware of. And one of the invitations that I want to extend to you this month is to overlay the way that we're paying attention to consolation and desolation and the discernment of those interior movements with this ongoing commitment to the work of formational healing. So I want to make a connection to the way the enemy works on us in desolation and the places in us that are in need of attentiveness to the healing work of God, what we call formational healing. These two things are connected, and this is what I want to talk with you about this month. Look with me again at what is called Rule 2 in the Discernment of Spirits, which are part of St. Ignatius's notes for spiritual directors and the spiritual exercises. He says this: the second rule, in persons who are going on intensely, purifying their sins and rising from good to better in the service of God our Lord. So he's referring here to people like you, people who are really intent on pursuing after God. And he says this, he says, the method of the movement of the spirits is contrary to that in the first rule. For then it is proper to the evil spirit to bite, sadden, and place obstacles, disquieting with false reasons, so that the person may not go forward. What Ignatius is describing here is the way that the enemy is at work to lead us towards desolation and the way that he continues to work on us once we're there. And the touch point here with our participation with God in our formational healing is this: the primary places where the enemy is going to poke at us or place obstacles in front of us or seek to sadden us is in the very places that are in most need of being healed by God. Like, why would the enemy try to strike us in places of strength? And so in the midst of desolation, one of the gifts of desolation is that the enemy reveals some of the places in us that are in need of healing. What Ignatius encourages in us during this time is to pay attention to the kinds of thoughts that come up for us while all of this desolation is unfolding. What are those thoughts about? Where are those thoughts leading us? And what are the nature of those thoughts? And then, as we pay attention to these things, we can work to fight against the lies and the deceptions of the enemy. And so let me just break this down a little bit. First, we are learning how to notice when we're in spiritual consolation and when we're in spiritual desolation. That's sort of the first step. And then secondly, we're learning how to try to trace our spiritual desolation back to the source. Like, where did this period or this season of desolation begin? What were the kinds of thoughts that entered my mind that led me here to this place of sadness or spiritual discouragement when my faith feels really weak or my desire to be in community feels really low? And then lastly, what material in me does the enemy have at his disposal to work with? Like, this is almost certainly a place where there is a wound or some sticky part of my flesh that I can then invite God into. So St. Ignatius gives us 3 steps that sum this up. He says, be aware, understand, and take action. Be aware of the interior movements in your soul and the origin of those interior movements. Understand the kinds of thoughts that emerge from that place when you're in a period of desolation. What are my thoughts doing? What kinds of thoughts are coming up in me? And then we can take action. And the 3 ways that we can take action, I want to sum up like this. This is how I sum these up: reconnaissance, resist, and reveal. So first, reconnaissance. This word reconnaissance is a stand-in for sort of what I've already been describing. It's a military term. So if you were in a battle with an enemy and you knew that your enemy was somewhere out there, you would send out some of your people to see if you can spot where the enemy is planning on attacking. And so for me, there are like maybe 2 or 3 main areas of my life that the enemy whispers lies to me about. These are the areas of my life where I am in most need of God's healing. And so these are the areas of my life that when they get stirred up, I continue to invite God into and seek to position myself to be attentive to the way that God is at work in me in these areas, and try to get curious about how God might want to love me through these periods of desolation. And so in a time of desolation, doing the work of reconnaissance means that we'll be paying attention in prayer at specific areas that the enemy is targeting. Like, this is where we need some formational healing because this is where the enemy is attacking me. Secondly, Ignatius tells us to resist. He essentially says that we have to fight back. We have to learn how to resist the lies that the enemy is telling us. We have to rest in the love of God for us in these times of desolation. And that's a kind of resistance. And then lastly, Ignatius encourages us to reveal to others what we're going through in this period of desolation. So we have to break the silence. What Ignatius is telling us is that we have to let other people who love us and understand the nature of these spiritual movements, we have to let those people in on the nature of our desolation, the kind of thoughts that come from that place, and what is being revealed to us about the kind of healing that needs to take place in us. Part of the healing work, part of the formational healing journey, is that the healing journey is meant to include other people. That God is going to do quite a bit of the healing work in us through the people in our life. And that one of the primary ways that God's love is being revealed to us is through other people. And this is the work that we're trying to do together with the Order of the Common Life. We're trying to lean in the same direction together with a shared vocabulary and a shared commitment that help us do this work of formation together. As always, we have some questions for you to think about as you prepare for your formation group. Much love and grace to you.